Hi, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of the Passive House Podcast, recorded in Tarrytown, New York at the PhiusCon 2021 Passive House Conference. Before we get started, I want to thank Phius for putting on the conference and for coordinating with us on these interviews, as well as NYSERDA for serving as conference partner with Phius and community partner with us here at the Passive House Accelerator. Thank you, too, to Rockwell North America. Their generous support underwrote all of these interviews as well as our coverage of the conference. With that, please enjoy my interview with Tom Bassett Dilley of TBD Architects. All right, welcome. We have Tom Bassett Dilley of TBDA with us here to talk about the conference, talk about his work, and I'm really excited to have a chance to chat with you.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here, man. You've been doing so much for this community, and it's fabulous.
And you have been really helping with that with presentations and part of the kind of experts that come together and share their knowledge and ask questions. And so,
it's funny because the first conference I went to was 2011, I think, Urbana, a while ago.
Yeah.
And I was just on the start of it, and looking to everybody else as these experts, and I still kind of feel that way, even though I've done a lot of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, this is one of those things that you don't just sort of master and you're everything. And, made a lot of mistakes, made a lot of successes too,
Yeah.
But it's just constantly a learning process, and it's great.
So you just won a couple of awards. Tell us about that.
Well, it's funny. Last night they said they created an award, the Institutional Retrofit, and I thought, we're probably not a lot of those.
Right.
So
created an award for your award
for our
project in order to be able to award it.
I know.
That's the second award for that project.
We got an honorable mention also in the Source Zero. So it's a Source Zero project, which is a really interesting thing in Illinois. There's this Clean Energy Community Foundation that awards grants to nonprofit entities or municipal entities that want to pursue net zero. And they used to award it for just LEED, and then eventually they raised the bar to LEED Platinum. And now we have to be a net zero building, and you have to get either Phius or Living Building certification. So that project was interesting because the Park District approached us to do an addition and retrofit. Well, just an addition and leave the old building alone. And when we got done we got done with schematic design and got some budget pricing, the board said, well, why can't we do better? Why can't we do like one of these net zero buildings like Tom just did for us a couple of years ago? And they said, well, okay. So we went back to the foundation and said, can we do the grant? And so we applied for the grant, got it, and so for a $1.7 million construction, we got about $577,000 to take it beyond just leaving the old part of the building alone and building this addition to fully retrofitting the old part to Passive House standards and building the new part to Passive House standards, about 7,000 square feet total. So that was exciting for everybody, and the retrofit was a huge portion of that money, because that hasn't been in the project. So. So that program really has helped jumpstart in these kind of net zero and Phius projects. So we're way overproducing solar, but it kind of becomes community solar in a sense, for the Park District. Right. And one of the most gratifying things I'll say about the project is that when we looked at the monitored results, I asked the Park District, are you guys not programming much because of COVID? And they said, no, it's just the opposite. Because this is a passive house and the air quality is so good, we're shifting our programming to this building because everybody wants to be in it. And I was like, that's so nice. Yeah. And, it's true. When I go into all the passive house buildings we've done about, 10 or so at this point. I always notice the air quality and it just smells better, And so I'm finally doing my own house this year, a decarbonization project, and that's a retrofit, which is the other presentation I made at the conference. And I'm not quite taking it to Passive House standards, but Graham and others are talking about what should that be. And so this new pilot program for retrofits. Graham Wright of Phius, yeah, who was on the panel with me yesterday remotely. Unfortunately, I wish he was here in person. But yeah, so I am getting the ventilation. I am getting the continuous insulation. So I'm hopefully going to have one of those good smelling houses here pretty soon.
That's exciting.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the Rocky Mountain Institute report right after COVID started, and everybody's inside and cooking and all this kind of stuff, and they're reporting on gas cooking and the toxicity of it, and basically saying, the EPA regulates air quality outside, but not inside, and it's more toxic in homes where you're doing a lot of cooking, you don't have good ventilation, which was my house, 1919. Even though we put in the stove, the range hood, I got one of those air quality monitors, and I was shocked what happens with the CO2 and the VOCs when we cook. And that's not measuring it does have a PM 2.5 monitor, but it breaks. That's not an inexpensive sensor if you get a good one. So ours basically, I think dust gets in it and it just spikes and it stays spiked because I know we don't have a constantly filthy environment, but anyway, so we don't even know what's happening with that when we cook. But anyway, now with the serve being installed, plus our exhaust over the stove, now we're cooking with induction, so it's a different thing. So we're electric, yeah.
What other key insights did you share, I guess, was the retrofit presentation was yesterday?
Yeah. Well, the retrofit presentation focused on 5 projects that we're doing right now where clients came to us asking for a deep energy retrofit or net zero. Two clients said, I want you to take my house and turn it to net zero energy, annual energy. One of those was a Frank Lloyd Wright house in Oak Park where I live, which was like one of those like, oh my God, what are we going to do with this project?
Yeah, that's kind of amazing.
Yeah. And a flat roof, so we can hide the solar, basically. You don't see it from the street. And one of them, the owner just said, we need to gut this house. It's a brick 2 flat. We need to gut the house because the previous people had let it really deteriorate, and it was smelly and deteriorating, and all the finishes were bad. So we wound up doing a deep energy retrofit on it. They didn't really ask for it, but anyway, on all of these, we're looking at how well we can do with the envelope and what are the stumbling blocks to getting to Phius. For instance, in a 1970 ranch, the slab is in good shape. There's a capillary break underneath it. It's expensive to take it out. There's a lot of embodied energy to put in a new slab. And when we looked at the energy difference in terms of solar panels, it was seven solar panels if we did our kind of good retrofit, 7 less solar panels if we took it all the way to passive house, which would require removing that slab and insulating.
Right.
So we're looking at all these projects in terms of what are the difficulties, what are the in these different typologies. Frank Lloyd Wright is an outlier, but my house, a 1919 frame bungalow, I think there's a lot of those around, or houses similar to that. The brick 2 flat in Chicago, that's a typology that just throughout the whole city. And in all of these, there are issues that make it extremely difficult to get to the heating metrics of the Phius criteria for certification. So my question or proposal is, can we figure out a way to modify the requirements where we're still striving for airtightness and avoiding thermal bridges and getting good ventilation and reducing our loads as much as we can, but being able to accommodate these weird things that are unique on so many different typologies, or house to house, even within the same typology. The reason being is that I think we know we need to scale up retrofits massively, and certainly at least at the outset, the skills that go into a passive house, the energy modeling, the building science knowledge, and the implementation with quality control, so essential. I mean, how else are we going to do it? It takes so much knowledge to do a retrofit right that I want this community to be involved. And that, I think, would mean adapting the retrofit standard to be able to allow it.
Right.
Now, I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for Phius staffing-wise, because I mean that takes a lot of time and energy. But when we calculate, we look at the 3.37 million housing units in Chicago. That if we need to retrofit, let's say 2 million of those before 2050, to like 60-70% energy reduction, that's 190 houses a day from now until 2050. So it's daunting, But we need, at least at the start, I think, to have really good attention to the details, the modeling, the execution, somehow, so we can proliferate with this. Yeah, Graham's presentation on our panel yesterday was really fascinating. Where he started from is like, what is the ideal? So it's like in the passive house world, thinking about it from like a living future living building challenge kind of thing. Like, what is the ideal? Ideal building. The building is like a flower. It provides, anyway, from an energy standpoint, he said the ideal is that there's zero carbon throughout the entire supply chain of this building. All the materials that come, all the people that work on it, all of its operation. So that's where we want to get to. And so if you're weighing the carbon content of your interventions, I mean, this is where I start thinking about that slab.
Right.
And I know from a dollar standpoint that I'm money ahead to put those solar panels on and not tear out the slab and do, some foam insulation and some, I mean, there's no question I'm dollars ahead, but I think I'm also probably carbon ahead.
Right.
But I haven't made that calculation to say that with confidence, but that's, I think, where we're kind of going to. Yeah. And, it's funny because the 5 projects I presented, there's like a McMansion from 2000. This woman, she's a young doctor, and she called me to say, I want to go net zero on this. I'm like, this isn't going to make financial sense. She said, I know. I don't care. I want to do this for moral reasons. And I'm like, wow. So we are so fortunate as a firm to have clients like this. The Frank Lloyd Wright one was fascinating because it was kind of similar. It's like, I want to show people who have income that you can live better with lower carbon. It's not about giving up things. It's about, I mean, one good example is in the last polar vortex we had, she couldn't get her bedroom above about 53 degrees. All these, it's just ringed with these gorgeous single glazed windows, which are just condensing and it's ruining the structure, So first thing we did, phase 1 was interior retrofit storm windows, which the contractor was restoration contractor, done a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright work, and beautiful craftsmanship, seamless, fairly seamless, with the existing, and these little hidden, neoprene gaskets, and So, so we're doing basically a 5-year on that one, and that's the other topic that I wanted to throw to Phius is like, can we figure out a way to make this retrofit standard allow for phasing? Because some of the work, I think, should be when things get to the end of their service life.
Right. Which is the classic, it's so much more cost effective to do retrofits in that manner.
Yeah. But right now our standard doesn't allow for phasing. Interfit does, I think. I haven't had experience with it, but so I think these things are coming and coming soon, and I'm so keyed up to have this community attacking this problem, because there's a lot of that knowledge here, and cold climates for sure, it's what we got to do.
Yeah, you're here. Well, Tom, this has really been a great conversation. I appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Is there anything else you want to add before we close up?
I guess just one thing. When Eric was talking, he wasn't talking as a DOE guy,
right,
but
from the building science boogie band.
Exactly, the boogie band. I just, during that whole session, there's a different energy to this conference. And it's not just because of COVID and the break. I just feel like with our weather events of the last year, I mean, it's like, it's more than a sense of urgency. You know what I mean? the Illinois Green Alliance gave me a nice award, the Emerald Award, which they give every year. A few weeks ago in Chicago, and on the way there, I had gotten home from being out on a trip. There were like crises going on my project. There was a plumbing clog that I was trying to deal with, and I can't take a shower, so I'm driving off to the award. We get rear-ended on the way there. You know what I mean? It's like, so we get to the party, and this wonderful, and I give an award speech, and I'm saying, I think it's a perfect metaphor for an architect working on climate change. Getting rear-ended on the way to the party. It's like climate is going to hammer us, and we have to just keep going to the party. So that's kind of what I'm feeling here. It's like, oh my God, but let's keep doing it. So anyway, so thank you.